My name doesn't really matter. If you're hearing this, what matters is the story and the fact that it happened. I'm not trying to convince you of ghosts, demons, or curses. This isn't one of those tales. What happened to me was something much worse, because it was real. At least I think it was. I used to live what most people would call an average life. I'm in my 30s, single, renting a modest 2-bedroom apartment just outside the city. I worked a job that ate up my energy and left me too tired to care about anything else. 8 o'clock to 6 o'clock, in an office that never seemed to sleep. My life revolved around the kind of routines that numb you. Drive to work, stare at a screen, drive home, microwave dinner, TV, bed, repeat. It wasn't glamorous, but it was safe, predictable, and in a way, I liked that. The first time the phone rang at midnight, I almost didn't answer. It was a Tuesday, and I'd fallen asleep on the couch with the TV on low. I remember jolting awake when the buzzing from my phone vibrated against the coffee table. My eyes were blurry, the room dim except for the flickering TV light. I squinted at the screen. Unknown caller. Normally I ignore those, but something about being woken up disoriented made me swipe the screen without thinking. Hello? My voice was groggy. Nothing. Not dead silence, though. I could hear a faint hiss. Static, like someone had called from a payphone or an old radio line. My first thought was that maybe it was a robocall that glitched. I stayed on the line waiting for the recording to start. Instead, I thought I heard breathing. Very faint, very slow. Hello? I repeated, sitting up straighter. The static crackled, then the line went dead. I sat there a moment, phone still in hand, staring at the dark screen. It didn't exactly scare me, but it unsettled me. I rationalized it. Wrong number, spam, glitch. Stuff happens. I went to bed and forgot about it by morning. The next night, though, it happened again. This time I was in bed already, scrolling on my phone, trying to lull myself to sleep. At exactly 12:04 a.m., the same unknown caller appeared. I frowned, hesitated, then answered. Hello? At first, static again. Then something else, a voice. It was faint, muffled, like someone speaking through fabric. I couldn't make out the words, but it wasn't gibberish. Someone was whispering. Watching. That was the one word I caught. My heart thudded, sudden adrenaline kicking in. Who is this? I asked. Seriously, what do you want? The line went silent for several seconds. Then it clicked dead. This time I stayed awake another hour, staring at the ceiling, phone clenched in my hand. The third night, it escalated. Again, 12:04 a.m. sharp. I answered, already tense. Look, whoever you are. The line cut me off, a voice, low, deliberate, not whispering this time. I know where you sleep. The words punched a hole right through me. I froze, my mouth dry, every instinct screaming that I wasn't safe. The line went dead. I sat in my bed, paralyzed, phone slipping from my hand. My apartment suddenly felt too open, too exposed. Every sound in the building, the pipes, the fridge, a creak from upstairs made me flinch. I didn't sleep that night. I told myself it had to be some sick prank. People spoof numbers all the time. I even mentioned it to a coworker the next day, half joking, hoping they'd laugh and tell me I was overreacting. Instead, they just shrugged. Creeps are everywhere. Block the number, you'll be fine. But it wasn't a number. It was always unknown. You can't block that. By Thursday night, I was dreading the call. I stayed up late with the lights on. TV volume turned up just enough to make me feel like I wasn't alone. I jumped at every buzz of my phone. And sure enough, 12:04. This time I let it ring. I thought maybe ignoring it would make it stop. The screen lit up, buzzed, then went dark. Relief rushed through me. Then a minute later I got a notification. Voicemail. My chest tightened as I pressed play. At first, static again, then faint breathing, Then a voice. "You had pasta tonight." My stomach dropped. I had. Spaghetti from a box, eaten while watching TV on the couch. The voicemail went on. "You sit with your legs crossed when you eat. You don't finish your plate." I dropped the phone onto the couch like it had burned me. Whoever it was, whoever was calling me, they weren't guessing. They were watching. That was the first time I checked the locks. All of them. Twice. I closed every blind, shoved a chair under the door handle, and sat on my couch with the lights blazing until sunrise. The next morning, bleary-eyed and wired, I called the police. The officer listened politely but didn't look convinced, dismissive. Told me he didn't believe me. He asked if I had an ex, someone with a grudge. I said no. He said without a number or proof of a threat, there wasn't much they could do. Probably just a prank, he said. A prank. But the way he said it, flat, or maybe didn't care. I walked out of that station more afraid than before. Because if the cops weren't going to help, then I was on my own. And deep down, I already knew the calls weren't going to stop. The following nights were a blur of dread. I started dreading midnight the way a child dreads the dark. I'd sit on the couch with my phone on the table, just staring at it as if my eyes alone could keep it from ringing. But it always did. Always at 12:04 a.m. Sometimes I answered, sometimes I didn't. It didn't matter, because the calls kept coming either way. The fifth night, when I finally gave in and picked up, the voice was clearer than before. "You locked the deadbolt 3 times, it said. My blood went cold. The phone nearly slipped out of my hand as I glanced towards the door. He knew. He was watching me lock up, watching me check over and over like some paranoid lunatic. "How do you know that?" I demanded, my voice shaking. "Who the hell are you?" Silence. Then a low chuckle, faint but sharp, like someone amused by my fear. The line went dead. I tore through my apartment after that. I yanked open closets, shoved aside furniture, even crawled into the crawl space above my bathroom. Nothing. Just me and the stale air of my own panic. But when I finally sat back down, breathing hard, I saw it. One of the blinds in the living room window tilted open. I never left them like that. The next day at work, I tried to act normal, but my exhaustion betrayed me. My boss asked if I was sick. Co-workers avoided eye contact. I probably looked insane, red-eyed, twitchy, flinching every time my phone buzzed. At lunch, I confided in my friend Mark. He laughed at first, but when I told him about the pasta voicemail and the deadbolt comment, the smile faded from his face. "You sure you locked the blinds?" he asked. "Yes," I said firmly. "I always close them. Always." He chewed his lip, uneasy. "You should get cameras, even fake ones, something to scare them off." I ordered 2 cheap ones from Amazon that night. They arrived the next day, and I spent my evening setting them up, one in the living room facing the front door, another facing the windows. I checked the feed on my phone compulsively, like a security blanket. That night, I sat awake watching the little black and white screen of my front door. At 12:04, the call came. I answered without speaking. The voice came low and deliberate. "Cameras won't save you." I stared at the feed, heart hammering, expecting to see movement. Nothing. Just my empty door. "Where are you?" I demanded, my voice breaking. The voice chuckled. "Closer than you think." The line went dead. I spent the rest of the night glued to the feed, too terrified to move. The cameras didn't help. If anything, they made it worse. Because the next morning, when I checked the saved footage, I saw it. At 12:06 a.m., 2 minutes after the call, the camera facing the door glitched for a fraction of a second. Just a flicker, but enough to freeze the frame. And in that frozen frame for less than a heartbeat, I swore I saw something, someone, standing in the hallway outside my apartment. Tall, still, facing the door. The timestamp burned into my brain.
12 hours, 6 minutes and 13 seconds. The footage resumed as if nothing happened. The hallway empty, the world normal. But I knew it wasn't. That evening I came home from work and immediately saw it. A note. Folded once, tucked under my door. No envelope, no name. Just plain white paper with block letters written in thick black marker. Stop ignoring me. I stood there for what felt like hours, the paper trembling in my hand. Then I crumpled it, shoved it in the trash, and double-checked every lock in the apartment. When the call came that night, I didn't answer. I couldn't. Instead, I sat on my couch, knees pulled to my chest, watching the phone buzz on the coffee table. A voicemail appeared. Hands shaking, I pressed play. This time, there was no static, no distortion, just a clear recording of my own voice. I was humming. Softly, aimlessly, the same way I did sometimes when microwaving dinner. It was me, in my own apartment, humming without even realizing it. And someone else had recorded it. By now I was unraveling. I called the police again, practically begging them to send someone. They came, looked around, found nothing. No fingerprints on the note, no sign of forced entry, no evidence. One of them gave me that look again, the kind that says we think you're crazy, but we can't say it out loud. When they left, I locked the door and sat in the silence of my apartment, heart pounding. And that's when I heard it. Not the phone this time. A noise. Soft, subtle, coming from the other side of the wall, like someone dragging their fingernails slowly across the drywall. I pressed my ear against it, holding my breath. Scratch, scratch, scratch. It moved from one end of the wall to the other, steady and deliberate. I backed away, trembling, every nerve screaming to run, but where could I go? The phone buzzed, a new text, from unknown. I like when you listen. That was the night I decided I couldn't stay there anymore. I packed a bag and went to crash on my friend Rebecca's couch. She was skeptical at first, but when she saw the messages and heard the voicemails, her face went pale. "Jesus, this is serious," she said. "You need to leave that apartment. Stay here until you figure something out." For the first time in days, I felt a flicker of relief. Safety. That night, Rebecca and I stayed up late, talking, watching movies. Around midnight, I felt myself start to relax. No buzzing phone, no knocks, no scratching walls. Maybe, I thought, maybe it really was the apartment. Maybe if I stayed away, it would stop. Then Rebecca's phone rang. She frowned, picked it up, glanced at the screen. It's for you," she said. My blood turned to ice. "Who is it?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. She turned the phone toward me. "Unknown caller." I took the phone with shaking hands. The voice on the other end was calm, confident, closer than it had ever sounded. "You can't hide from me." The line went dead, and the silence that followed was worse than anything I'd heard before, because it wasn't just silence, it was a promise. After the call to Rebecca's phone, I stopped sleeping. It wasn't a conscious choice, I just couldn't anymore. Every time my eyes shut, I'd jolt awake, convinced that if I let myself drift off, I'd wake to find him standing over me. My body ran on coffee in raw panic. My thoughts turned jagged, restless and frayed. Rebecca tried to help. She even offered to stay up with me the next night just to prove nothing would happen, but she couldn't stay awake forever. By 3 a.m, she was passed out on the couch, her breathing steady, while I sat hunched in the recliner clutching my phone like a weapon. When it buzzed at 12:04 a.m, I didn't even check the screen. I just answered. Silence. Then a whisper, low and deliberate. "I can see her." My stomach dropped. I turned slowly toward Rebecca's sleeping body. The voice chuckled, soft and malicious. She looked so peaceful. I stood and scanned the windows, the shadows, the door. Nothing. Just darkness and silence.
"Where are you?" I demanded, voice breaking. "How are you doing this?" The voice ignored my question. "Do you trust her to keep you safe?" Then the line went dead. I didn't sleep at all that night. By morning, Rebecca insisted we go to the police together. Maybe, she reasoned, they'd take me more seriously if someone else came forward. The officer behind the desk barely looked up from his monitor as we explained. "Do you have the number saved?" he asked. "No," I said. "It always comes up as unknown. Can't you trace it?" He sighed. "Not without a warrant, and we need proof of an actual crime for that. Harassing phone calls aren't enough unless there's a direct threat." I pulled up the voicemail. The one of me humming. I shoved my phone across the counter. "Someone recorded me in my apartment. Isn't that a crime?" He listened for a few seconds, then shrugged. "Could be a prank. Could be audio you recorded yourself. Nothing we can prove." I wanted to scream. Rebecca argued with him for a while, but it was useless. We left station more hopeless than before. That was the moment I realized no one was going to save me. Over the next week, the calls grew stranger. One night, the voice recited lines from conversations I'd had earlier that day, word for word. Another night, I heard myself coughing through the speaker, a cough I'd had that morning while brushing my teeth. The most disturbing was when he began describing what I was wearing, down to the socks. Every detail proved the same thing. He wasn't just calling me, he was watching me. Rebecca finally asked me to leave, not out of cruelty but fear. "I'm sorry," she said, her voice trembling. "But if he's following you, I can't. I can't risk it." I understood, but it still felt like abandonment. I went back to my apartment, knowing it was the last place I should be. That night, the buzzing came at 12:04. I ignored it. A minute later, another buzz, a text. I opened it with shaking hands. "Check your kitchen." My heart seized. Slowly, I turned my head toward the kitchen. The light was on. I hadn't turned it on. I crept toward it, phone in one hand, kitchen knife in the other. The room was empty, silent, but the light switch was up. And on the counter next to the sink sat a small object that hadn't been there before. A key. My spare key. The one I'd lost months ago and written off as misplaced. Another buzz. "Did you miss me?" By then I was barely functioning. I called in sick to work. I stopped answering friends' texts. My entire world shrank to the walls of my apartment and the relentless ticking of the clock as midnight approached. I tried changing my number, bought a new SIM card. It didn't matter. At 12:04 sharp, the new phone rang. Unknown. When I answered, the voice sounded almost pleased. "You really thought you could get away?" I hurled the phone across the room, smashing it against the wall, but the buzzing didn't stop. The broken screen lit up, vibrating against the floor. Sleep deprivation makes the world blur at the edges. Time slips. Reality bends. One night, after 3 straight days awake, I thought I saw someone standing in my hallway. A tall shadow, still and patient. I blinked, and it was gone. Another time, I swore I heard breathing in the closet. I opened it, knife in hand, but found nothing. The calls became the only thing that felt real. One night I answered and whispered, "What do you want from me?" The reply came soft and chilling. "I want to be the last voice you ever hear." I stopped calling the police, stopped reaching out to friends. What was the point? No one believed me, and the more I tried to explain, the crazier I sounded. I was alone with him, alone with the buzzing phone, the texts, the whispers through the wall at night. One morning I woke to find another note slipped under my door. This one wasn't typed or printed. It was handwritten, and the handwriting was mine. "Pick up tonight, or I'll come inside." That was the first time I cried, not out of sadness, but sheer terror. Because no matter how far I ran, no matter what number I used, he always found me. And now,
I understood the truth. He wasn't just some stranger harassing me. He was inside my life, inside my home, inside me, watching, waiting. And soon he would step out of the shadows.
I used to believe the phone was the scariest part. The ringing, the voice, the way it cut into my nights like a blade. But I was wrong. The calls were only the beginning. The night after the handwritten note, I sat on the couch with every light in the apartment blazing, knife in one hand, phone in the other. I tried not to blink, tried not to breathe. When 12:04 came, the phone buzzed. I didn't answer. Another buzz, a text. I'm already inside. I froze. My eyes darted to the door, the windows, the hallway. Nothing. Another buzz. Behind you. I spun around, knife raised, heart hammering. No one. Just the hum of the refrigerator and the ticking of the wall clock. I checked the closets, the bathroom, under the bed. Every shadow stretched long and threatening, but the apartment was empty. And yet, the key on the counter glinted under the kitchen light, a reminder. He didn't need to break in. He could walk in whenever he wanted. The next day I tried barricading the door with furniture. I stacked chairs, wedged a dresser against the frame. That night the buzzing came again. When I didn't answer, the phone chimed with another text. Cute. Do you think that will stop me? Then, 3 loud knocks at the door.
I froze. My body went rigid. Another knock, louder. I crept toward the door, every muscle trembling. Slowly I pressed my eye to the peephole. The hallway outside was empty. Then came a whisper, low, soft, almost playful, right against the wood. I can wait. I stumbled backward, knocking over the chair I'd stacked against the door. When I checked the peephole again, the hallway was still empty. But I didn't sleep. Not that night, not the night after. By now I was unraveling. The walls felt too close, the air too thin. My skin crawled constantly, as if watched from 100 unseen angles. I unplugged the smoke detector, thinking maybe a hidden camera was inside. I tore the apartment apart, checking the vents, the outlets, even the light bulbs. Nothing. But the calls never stopped. And they always came at 12:04. 3 nights later, I broke. I called Rebecca, begged her to let me come over. She hesitated, then said, "Okay, but just for tonight." I packed a small bag, clutching it like a lifeline, and left the apartment just before midnight. As I drove, my phone buzzed. Unknown. I shouldn't have answered, but I did. The voice was calm, patient, almost amused. "You think she'll keep you safe? She won't even hear you scream." I threw the phone into the passenger seat and pressed harder on the gas. Rebecca tried to be understanding. She made tea, let me crash on her couch again, but I could see it in her eyes. She didn't believe me. Not really. She thought I was having a breakdown. Maybe she was right. But then, at 12:04, her phone buzzed. She frowned and picked it up. Weird. Unknown number. My blood turned to ice. She answered. Silence. Then her face drained of color. She handed me the phone with a trembling hand. I pressed it to my ear. The voice whispered, "Run." I dropped the phone like it was on fire. Rebecca stared at me, terrified now, not of the call, but of me. "I think you need help," she whispered. I couldn't stay, not when he could reach me here too. So I left, back to the apartment, back to the buzzing phone, back to him. The next night I tried something different. I sat in the dark, all lights off, knife across my lap. I wanted to catch him off guard. At 12:04 the phone buzzed. I didn't move. Another buzz, a text. Nice strategy. My throat went dry. Another text. "But I can still see you." My eyes swept the room. The blinds were drawn, every curtain pulled shut. How could he see me?
Then another buzz. A picture. It was me, sitting in the dark, knife across my lap, taken seconds ago. My hands shook so violently I dropped the phone. The knife clattered to the floor. Somewhere in the apartment, the floorboards creaked. I didn't think. I ran. I bolted for the door, ripped the dresser and chairs aside and threw it open. The hallway yawned before me, silent and empty. I sprinted down the stairs, barefoot, bag forgotten, out the front door, into the cold night. I didn't stop running until I was blocks away, chest burning, lungs screaming for air. When I finally slowed, I pulled out my phone. One new text. You can't run forever. That was 2 nights ago. Now, I'm hiding in a cheap motel on the edge of town. Different number, different place. I paid in cash. No one knows I'm here. And still, at 12:04 last night, the motel phone rang. Not my cell, the motel landline. I picked it up, hand trembling. The voice whispered, soft and final. Almost time.
The motel was supposed to be safe. That's what I kept telling myself as I sat on the edge of the stiff mattress, staring at the floral patterned curtains and listening to the old air conditioner rattle in the wall. I'd paid in cash, no credit cards, no ID. I'd even changed my number again, buying a burner phone from a gas station on the way. No one knew where I was. No one. But when the landline rang at 12:04, I knew it didn't matter anymore. He would always find me. I didn't answer that night. I couldn't. I sat in silence, hands over my ears, tears burning my eyes as the phone rang and rang, echoing through the dim, dirty room until it finally stopped. But I didn't sleep, not even for a minute. Every sound made me flinch. The hum of the AC, the creak of the headboard when I shifted my weight, footsteps in the hallway. I held the knife in my hand until the sun rose, metal warm against my sweaty palm. When morning came, I packed my bag and left without looking back. The next day blurred into nothing. Fast food wrappers, gas station bathrooms, endless driving with no destination. I thought maybe if I kept moving he couldn't catch me. But I couldn't outrun the clock. 12:04 came again. This time my burner phone buzzed. I nearly swerved off the road when I saw it. Unknown. My hands shook so hard I almost dropped the phone. Against every ounce of reason I answered. His voice was calm, steady, certain. You're getting tired, you can't keep this up. I screamed into the phone, demanded to know who he was, what he wanted. The line went quiet for a moment. Then he said, almost gently, I want to see the look on your face. The call ended. I threw the phone out the window and kept driving until the gas tank bled empty. That was last night. Now it's my last night. I can feel it.
I checked into another motel, cheaper than the last, the kind where the walls are thin and no one asks questions. I pushed the dresser in front of the door, jammed the chair under the knob, pulled the curtains tight. It won't matter, but doing something feels better than nothing. The clock on the nightstand glows red in the dark. 11:58. My hands shake as I hold the knife. 11:59. The air feels heavier, like the room itself is holding its breath. 12 o'clock. The phone stays silent, for now. 12:01. I tell myself maybe this is it, maybe he's done. 12:02. I almost believe it. 12:03. I close my eyes. 12:04. The landline rings. My breath catches in my throat. The sound fills the room, shrill and merciless. I tell myself not to answer, not this time. If I don't pick up, maybe it'll stop. But my hand moves anyway, like it isn't mine. I lift the receiver, press it to my ear. Silence. Then, I'm here. My blood runs cold. Slowly, I turn my head toward the mirror above the dresser. At first, all I see is my own reflection, pale, hollow-eyed, knife clutched white-knuckled in my hand. Then behind me, in the dim glow of the clock,
A shape moves. Tall, patient, waiting. I spin around, knife raised, and the line goes dead. They found the motel room 2 days later. The door was still locked from the inside, furniture shoved against it, curtains drawn. The bed was empty. The only thing out of place was the phone on the nightstand, off the hook, receiver dangling, and a faint indentation on the mattress as if someone had been sitting there, waiting.